Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Andre and I'm your bookworm, and we are back from holidays. Hopefully this video comes out in the right time and I've scheduled everything right. But yes, I'm back from holidays and I am ready for more reviews, more book content, especially new videos that now that I'm back, I will have some time to do them and I'm really excited about them. Hopefully they do well in the algorithm and you'll be able to see them, and hopefully you'll enjoy them too, because in the end this is this that's occurring. It's for both of us to enjoy. But anyways, today we have a book review and we're reviewing another fantasy book, and it is the end of a trilogy that we've reviewed here on the channel, which is the Powder Mage trilogy by McClellan. This book is The Autumn Republic. So like I said, this is the third book of the trilogy. I've reviewed the first two books. You can check the reviews out with the thumbnails, the cards popping up in the corner. Yeah, this is the third one, final one in this world. I don't think there's anything, other books or the novels published in this world. There are some short stories, but aside from that, I don't think so. What do we have to say about this book? Well, published in 2015, so 10 years ago now. This book has gathered over 34,000 ratings on Goodreads, and the score it averages on is a 4.36 out of 5, which is quite good, especially for the end of a trilogy. We like to see these rates go up as the series ends, because at least it means that the fans that continue the series enjoyed the last book. At the time of publishing this book, it was nominated for the Goodreads Choice Awards for Fantasy. Unfortunately, it did not win that year, but being nominated in itself is really good. For the curious ones that have seen this edition and the rest of them, which are these two books, this is actually Broken Binding. You've probably seen me opening these books in the shorts that I published. But yeah, these are the special edition that they produce in their subscription. I can show you just a tiny bit of it, but these are hardbacks. They have amazing spine work and the artwork inside is amazing. It looks like a Renaissance painting, which I think fits the vibe of this book a lot. So hope you can see it's a bit dark. The gloss is showing through, but this one shows better. So as you can see, there's this military, kind of like Napoleon epoch of time, which fits again because this truly felt, especially the first one, very French Revolution type of story with magic. So all of that vibed really well with this art. But moving on to our housekeeping items, you know the drill. Synopsis is coming, so I'll be narrating it. If you don't want to hear anything about it, timestamp floating around, just skip to that time. You won't hear anything, especially if this is your first endeavor into the series. You don't want to hear any spoilers of the third book, so skip to that time, otherwise stick around. The capital has fallen. Field Marshal Tomas returns to his beloved country to find that for the first time in history, the capital city of Adro lies in the hands of a foreign invader. His son is missing, his allies are indistinguishable from his foes, and reinforcements are several weeks away. An army divided. With the chaos still bearing down upon them, and without clear leadership, the Adran army has turned against itself. Inspector Adamat is drawn into the very heart of this new mutiny with promises of finding his kidnapped son. All hope rests with one, and Taniel Tushot, hunted by the men he once thought his friends, must safeguard the only chance Adro has of getting through this war without being destroyed. And that is the synopsis for you. Now, our last housekeeping item before we jump into the actual review is just go through the scores of the previous books, just so we have a sense of how the trilogy is progressing so far. So you'll have the scores around, and I have to say that I think the books are quite strong. The final scores, as you can see, are 4.2 and 4.4 respectively, and I think I like the characters and the plot a lot more in the second book compared with the first one. And I actually thought the second book did not suffer from middle book syndrome whatsoever. It was quite strong in itself. I think it had a lot of good premises, and so I was very keen to read this third one. How did it fare? Let's find out. Starting with our plot category, we followed the same POVs as we followed in the second book, and I think that was good. I think they all started quite separated, quite spread out, and then eventually towards the end they kind of converge all into one big center when the climax happens. I think even though some of these POVs had a lot going on with mystery, suspense, action, pacing, all of those quite well balanced, Other plot lines felt a bit empty. I don't want to point any fingers to any of the POVs because that would in itself be a spoiler, but let me just say that Tomas was one of my favorite plot lines in this book. And funny enough, we think that once all the plot lines and all the POVs converge into one single moment of the climax, everything becomes really exciting, and I actually felt that it didn't. I felt like it became less exciting. It was still epic, don't get me wrong, but I think it got a bit repetitive, a bit of a Deus Ex Machina coming in. For the ones that don't know, it's when pretty much something that comes a bit out of nowhere comes to save and make sure that the story ends up in a good term. It was kind of like that, but not exactly in the same way, just that sense of a Deus Ex Machina coming. So for this category, with the good and the bad, I'm going to give it a 4, because I think for a final book, it has a good plot, but the ending I was expecting to be a bit more exciting and more spectacular in the climax pretty much. And as for characters, our second category, this one also got me feeling mixed. Because on one side, we have characters that we've seen development occur throughout not only this book, but throughout the whole trilogy, that their development arcs peak in this book and that we see them reach their maximum capacity of development and their full potential. And it was very satisfying to see. Among them, there was Tomas, Vlora, Nyla. Some of these were really good. And then there were others that seemed to be going in the right direction. And then at the end, I feel like there was a bit of a flop or a cop-out that didn't really align quite well with that character and or characters, because there were a couple of them, and I don't want to say exactly who because spoilers, but yeah, there were some that didn't, the ending wasn't exactly the right one for me. And for example, Adamat was one that I felt very neutral. There were moments where I was happy with how the character was going, other moments I was feeling a bit negative, but towards the end, I think it all averaged out and it became quite neutral. So as you can see, there is a great range of what you can feel about the character's development. This is not to say that you won't like the characters. I enjoyed all the characters, but I think their developments, some of them could have been improved. Overall, like I said, I think all the characters have spirit and I enjoyed reading about them. Nyla was probably one of the best ones I could think of. But yeah, overall for this category, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. We're halfway with now our third category, which is world building. And funny enough, I think this book was the one that focused the least in the powder mages and the knights and decided to use the most focus on the privileged. I would have liked, and this is more of a personal preference, if we had a more balanced exploration of these magic systems and we explored a bit of every single one at the same time instead of just having one really explored and the other two in the background a lot. However, I still enjoy reading about it and discovering more about how everything works. Now, regarding the world itself, there were several details that I was very keen to read, especially about the deities of this world. But at the same time, I feel like there was a lot of information that was left out. And I don't know if this was on purpose because it would be too big and too laborious of a book to read if they had that many details, or simply because the author didn't even think about them. I think more the former, but still, I would have liked to have a bit more information. Maybe this will come in the short stories, I'm not sure, but there's that small detail about deities in this world. Actually, it would be a really cool idea if there was a book detailing how the deities of this world came to be and how they form the countries that exist in the happenings of this trilogy. I don't think the short stories tell that. I don't think there is any other book that tells that, but that would be a really cool idea. If you like diverse magic and several magic systems playing around with each other, I think you'll enjoy the trilogy and this book in specific. For me, I think this category deserves a 4 out of 5 for the parts that I mentioned before. How about writing style? Well, I like Brian McClellan's prose a lot. I think the writing is so well adapted to the book in the sense that the epoch that we're living this world and this story, it has a certain rhythm to it, and that rhythm comes in the writing and how the characters talk, how they behave, and I enjoyed all of that as I was reading through the trilogy. And I think the world, it can be harsh, but it's not grim, and so I feel like There are so many books that are now into the grim dark fantasy, which is totally fine, and it has its own subgenre. But this one felt harsh, but not to the point of becoming grim. And the writing completely conveys that, and I enjoy it also because of it. And I like also the writing in the sense the pacing, because Brian McClellan knows how to make you expect the end of an arc and how the arc ends, but you're not at the end of the book. You still have plenty of story to go, and you think, oh my god, the epicness will only increase if this was already quite epic. And I enjoy that. Even though the ending wasn't delivered in the best way as I wanted, I think the pacing of the book overall was still quite good. I think it's one of those proses that is really good with battles and with action, and so I think for this category, I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 5. And our last category, which is enjoyment. I enjoy this book a lot, and despite not being the best at everything, it doesn't have the best plot or characters or world building, I still enjoyed reading it. Because I think it had just the right amount of positivity in all these categories that would make me excited to read it. Besides, there's plenty of epic battles, and I do love an epic battle. And throughout the book, I find myself also finding excuses to go read it, which doesn't happen that often, but when it does, I know that, okay, I am really invested in this book. I want to see how it ends. The ending, again, was a bit disappointed, but I think overall my excitement, especially when the final battle was happening, I was very excited about it, and I wanted to keep reading. So I think for this category, it's going to be a 5 out of 5. However, I do know that taking into account that ending, I should probably lower it from a 5 to a 4, but I think it would be unfair to do so because my excitement was there, and it was just that the ending wasn't that delivered. And the plot category already suffered a bit from the fact that the ending wasn't the best. So for this category, it's going to be a 5. And that leads us to the end of our review. Just as a refresher, we have 4 for plot, 4 for characters, 4 for world building, and then 5 for writing style, and 5 for enjoyment. And that gives us a final score of 4.4 out of 5, which happens to be the same score as the second book. And even though the second book actually has a different combination of scores for the different categories, and I also think that this book, the third one, is a 4.4 stronger than the 4.4 of the second book, if that even makes sense. Either way, it's a score that is very close to the Goodreads one, so I guess my opinion is quite similar to the average population of Goodreads. And I will recommend this book to several friends of mine when they're looking for a different setting in fantasy. One that has plenty of different magic systems, it's flintlock, it has a lot of mysteries to be solved. And then again, if I average the score of the 3 books in this trilogy, it means that this trilogy for me has a 4.33 score out of 5, which is pretty good for a trilogy, and I think it is definitely worth reading. Maybe not for beginners in fantasy, but for the more experienced readers, give it a go. It might be something that will surprise you, especially on how different the setting is. Besides, I'll definitely put Brian McClellan on my list of authors to read books from. So if that is worth anything, that's my advice. But let me know what you think. Comment down below. Have you read this trilogy? What did you think of that ending? Was it amazing for you? Do you think it could have been different? I want to know more. And again, if you're new, don't forget, subscribe, like the content, and I'll be seeing you on Thursdays and Sundays, okay? Hopefully the schedule will now be regularized, and you'll be seeing videos more recurrently. But yeah, see you soon.